So Robert, in your book, Rebel Without a Crew, you once said, creativity, not money, solves problems.
Right.
How do you feel that's been the guiding principle of your career up
Entirely,
to now?
yeah. Through every nook and cranny of the career, all the way to the limit. If it's about how do you take this new technology and use it in a way that hasn't been used before, it comes down to just being creative with it and figuring it out, and it helps to just know all the different jobs. Because if you're going to do something, like when I first started shooting digital, DPs didn't even want anything to do with digital, so I had to be my own cinematographer or get into digital 3D. I had to learn green screen technology to shoot a Sin City, because nobody was doing it, and nobody was really doing anything like this in VR. So we kind of had to build our own camera, figure out how to edit it because you couldn't even see what you were editing. I'd have to edit it, barely being able to see, send it to my son. He'd watch it in VR, sending back notes, and I would do the cuts. You have to just be creative. Everything's like rubber bands and popsicle sticks, at first. But that's when you're doing something really cutting edge and new. And it always comes down to creativity over money, and the illusion of some big idea. And Michelle's like that. Michelle's a great writer and storyteller. When I said, you and I should be doing VR with my son Racer, she came back in a couple days with this idea of, okay, here it is. The audience is following me through an adventure. We're jumping out of a plane in an urban warfare scenario through a car chase. Come back, work with that. Let's see what you come up with. And I was like, wow, that would be amazing to be in a movie. You're in a movie with Michelle as a viewer. A movie, not a live experience, but like an actual movie story. And all this shit that happens in a movie would be happening to you in VR with her as your co-star, and you're an important character. You're not just watching what's going on, you are part of the story, a big part of the story, and it gets bigger as the story unfolds and the mystery is revealed. So again, you're just using creativity to make something out of putting on a helmet to where an audience is going to want to watch and actually pay to watch this experience. And you just cross your fingers and hope it all work, because no one's done it before, and that's a really exciting thing. And it worked like gangbusters.
He's obsessed with
really
the dark.
Excited.
He loves the dark.
Yeah.
I want to know what the mystery on the other side is, and I love pioneers like that. I really don't get along with anything else.
Andy Vick of STX said, people are going to hear Michelle Rodriguez is in this. We got to go play it. Got to go watch it, so to speak. I was wondering, do you really feel it's like the bigger film projects that like no name attached, VR won't get made, that the only way people are gonna move into that field?
Absolutely not. It has nothing to do with having a name in the industry of storytelling at all. I think that it's just a new format, it's a new platform, and I think this generation is going to be attracted to it regardless. Because it's kind of like Gen Me. It's the idea of gamers. It's the idea of, I don't want to sit there and watch the ball game. I want to be a part of the ball game. And that is pretty much this generation in a nutshell. If you look at the trends that they have in social media, if you watch the trends of gaming, they'll sit there and watch other gamers game, but it's because they play and they're part of that immersive experience. And I think that that's the attraction to this new format of full immersion VR, and augmented reality and all the things and possibilities that come with that. I think it'll evolve into the gaming experience of alternate storytelling, where you're gaming and the next thing you know, you put on your VR experience headset, and you are getting 3 different versions depending on how you play of what the story outcome is going to be. And maybe those stories will be made by a Spielberg or a really great director like Robert. Who knows, maybe in the future it'll be Jim Cameron and the video game version of Avatar. But I really do feel that this is the future of gaming, and I just was so excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, Robert, I find your story interesting because I've read that, when you shot football, you originally fired for shooting stuff cinematically.
Yeah, well, the football coach didn't want hero shots of his players. He wanted to just see what the play was, to see where they were screwing up. I was following the ball, I was zooming in as the guy caught it, I was adding action music.
Have you ever spoken to him since and been like, I'm doing VR now?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever spoken to that?
Oh, no. Well, no, I was bad at that job. He wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. That specific assignment just wasn't interesting. When I saw who they got and he just didn't move the camera. I said, okay, that's who they needed for that. I'm going to go make my movies. So this VR is very similar in that it's so pliable. Anybody can do anything with it. We just took it and used it in a what-if scenario. What if you were in an action film? What if you could star in an action film with Michelle Rodriguez and Norman Reedus? Would you like that? Yeah. So that's what this allows you to do. VR can allow you to do many different things. I've seen applications for it that blow my mind. So I think it's so open and wide open. It will just give people ideas. We needed to cast real action badasses in it because that's the conceit, is that you get to star in an action film. So you want somebody that you go, oh, marquee value. Oh yeah, I would. It elevates your experience to be in it with somebody who's an actual action star.
I feel the reason audiences are always attracted to watch you is because you're genuine. I mean, you even fought to get into your movie back in Girl Fight. You beat 350 applicants. And the whole background. I feel there's something about that makes people return, unlike other stars.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. I was wondering also, you started your own network.
That's right.
El Rey. You're expanding everywhere. I mean, you were the first one in Sin
you don't
City.
play around, dude.
Yeah.
Respect.
We go big.
Or go home.
And going back to the headset, you mentioned that in an interview that people won't be able to turn around, that you're still directing the action, so to speak. Can you elaborate more on that?
Instead of doing a 360 dome of VR for this cinematic experience, we wanted to make it a half dome. Because I found when I would put it on a VR helmet that was done 360, I would constantly be trying to see what I might be missing, and I would miss what goes by in front. And a lot of times there's nothing back there. So I didn't want the audience to be that distracted where they always felt like they had to be so active. So we make it limited in some way so that you can still have freedom of movement and feel like you're actually there. That's the important thing. But you don't have to keep searching for what you might be missing. So it kind of keeps it passive enough.
I think in the future there's going to be that idea of what that Tony Hawk engine brought to Grand Theft Auto. The idea of building a world that you can explore. But when you're telling a story, a movie-like story, you kind of don't want to spend hours, floating around the land. You want to focus on getting you from point A to point B, and the 180 is just perfect for that.
How do you feel audiences have reacted so far when you've given them, the chance to test out?
It's fun to watch people watching it. When I first was doing it, I gave it to my kids, and you'd see them backing up because Norman Reedus is charging at them, and you feel like you're there. And so it's cool to see people get excited about it because it's something they've never seen before. People like new experiences, but yet it's comfortable because you know what an action film is. You're just now inside of it. So it's a completely different way to view it. And you can't just take this and show it on regular movie theaters because it's custom made for a VR experience. So it's nice that you're getting a very different experience by putting the helmet on and going, okay, now I get it. This makes sense. This is cool. I'd like more of this.
Did the experience itself lend itself to the name, the limit? Was it supposed to be a push the limit kind of thing?
That was the idea. That's where the title came from. Yeah. The original title was just Michelle. Because it was about Michelle and you. And then as we started thinking about names, my son wrote a line in there saying, "Welcome to the limit." Yeah. And I thought, that sounds kind of cool, but it's really about being unlimited in that world. But we wanted to push the boundaries and see what the limit of the technology really was by pushing it as far as possible. And that's where the title came from.
Where do you feel we are right now in the virtual reality realm? Do you feel we're still in its
very beginning, very early days? Yeah. That's where I like to get involved in stuff. Like when I started shooting digital cameras, they weren't ready for cinema yet, but I knew they would take longer if nobody started using them. So I went and started shooting Once Upon a Time Mexico, Spy Kids 2, Sin City, with the new digital cameras out. No DP even wanted to touch those.
You made it look sick too.
You made it look really cool, and then they made people think, oh, maybe there's something to that. And then the cameras get better all of a sudden because then there's more demand, and the manufacturers make better shit. So if you get in there right away, and don't wait. A lot of people were waiting for the next VR versions to come out before they went and really did some serious stuff with it. Well, you'll be waiting a long time. But if you start with what they have now, just be really creative, use your creativity to use the few tools that are there, you can do something really amazing. Mostly with creativity. Very little bit has to do with the tools. And that'll push the whole industry further.
I say in less than 10 years, you're definitely you'll have that 360 motion capture experience as an immersible situation where you're either gaming or you're watching action, but in the world where the action is taking place. Like less than 10 years for sure.
How do you feel about playing another badass character in the Limit?
Oh, I would love it. Are you kidding me? You can call upon. I'm one of his soldiers, man. I'm down for any pioneering scheme, man.
She's
I'm
always
there.
like you can call her and say, it sounds kind of weird, but I know the camera doesn't really even exist yet, but I think it might. I'm there. We didn't have a camera. That's what took so long.
Well, you're gangster with it, man. I respect you. Always. He's good.
Thanks, guys. We'll finish on that high five.
Thanks.
Cheers.